Hello, and welcome to the Film Pittsburgh Fall Festival Q&A with filmmaker Matthys Boshoff, who is the director and co-writer of the feature film Children of the Storm. Matthys, I am so appreciative that you're able to be with us from Singapore. I'm just so excited to talk to you about your film. It's unlike anything else. We're playing a South African Western drama. If you could tell our audiences a little bit about how the film came to be, I think that'd be great.
Hi, hello, Catherine. Wonderful to be
Hello.
with you, and hello to your audiences too. Yeah, the film had quite a long journey, actually, around about 8 years to get made. The script was initially written by Brett Michael Innes, who's a scriptwriter and also a novelist. And about 5 years after the first draft, I came on board and then got involved as co-writer. And I think one of the reasons it took such a long time to write is that it was a very challenging film. You know, it doesn't really snow in South Africa, and we had to create all these snowstorms. So one was waiting for technology to become cheap enough to still make an independent film at that scale and scope. So it had quite a long journey, and we had wonderful partners along the way. It was a wonderful challenge.
So tell us a little bit about the folklore, the novel, the story, and how true to it did you stick?
Yep. The folklore is the story of Rachel de Beer, and basically what we know is run about in the 1830s. There was what they called the Great Trek, was basically pioneers moving from the Cape, where most of the settlers were, up into South Africa. And it was in this time that this young girl, a pet calf went missing, the little brother went searching for it, he got lost in a snowstorm, and young Rachel went out to find her brother and then sacrificed her life to save him. And that's basically what we know, and what a lot of people believe is a true story in South Africa. On further research, we realized that Rachel did not really live in South Africa, but chances are that she may have been American, actually from North Dakota. So, the story set in the 1830s, originally, the folklore. It was first written in the 1920s by a prolific writer called Eugene Marais. And he first wrote the story a few months after the story of Hazel Minor appeared in newspapers in North America, which was a story from North Dakota, a young girl who got lost in a snowstorm with two siblings and sacrificed her life to save them. So it was post-war South Africa with the British. A lot of people were in depression. So it was a time when they wanted to create national heroes. And that's how folklores are born, really. So it really points to it being an American story.
So fascinating. So the whole backstory of them losing their mother, wife, and traveling to seek a new life and fortune is all thanks to the writers, or is that part of the novel folklore?
Yeah, that's really part of the writers, in that the folklore literally is a one-page story.
Oh, interesting.
And it never mentioned the mother. So Brett, who wrote the novel, really thought it would be interesting how to bring the story of the mother into it. And then I thought also just to really build on it in the film, if you have a 12-year-old girl who grows up without a mother, and she's at that brink of time in her own life when she's transitioning from being a girl to being a woman, and she's got to play mother to this child. It brought a stronger human element into it versus just a plain kind of survival, plain Western or a drama. It really brought a different human element to it. We wanted to explore.
Absolutely, for sure. Because it makes sense to so many mothers to protect their young, to protect their children. Talk about the shooting, the cinematography. I really felt swept away, and like I had traveled to another land. And I think especially now during this time of no travel, that is super important. So I thank you for that. But can you talk a little bit about the shooting and how many days did you shoot?
We shot for about 25 days. I think for an independent film, it's a decent amount. Looking at the scope of what we had to do, I think the film had about 260 visual effects shots, which is quite big on a
Yeah.
tiny budget. Um, but we shot in a region of South Africa called the Eastern Free State, and it's at the foot of the Drakensberg Mountains, which is our biggest mountain range. So obviously wanted to go for the epic scenery. And in terms of shooting cinematography, we really wanted to try and play a balance between the idea of a folklore or fable and keeping it quite real. And so we lit literally most of our interior scenes with candlelight only. So we tried to stay away from film lights to give it that authentic feeling. And I think that's what you mean by when you feel it's almost like tactile. There's a certain texture to it. It was really incredible. And then obviously a lot of remote shooting, putting up crew in little places on small farms and finding accommodation. And we really relied on the local communities of small towns as well to help us.
Wow. Have they seen the film where these small towns?
Yeah, most people would have. Most people would have in South
Fantastic.
Africa.
And tell us about the casting. I'm particularly interested in the young girl. She was really just amazing. How did you find her?
So Zonica de Vries, I think she was 12 years old when we shot the film. So quite a task to carry a film like that. And she was on set every single day, 25 days
She
out of the
had
25.
definitely a level of maturity about her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons why we cast her, is because she felt older than her age. And if you wanted to depict the struggle of a girl who still wants to be a girl, but she's got to be a mother at the age
Right.
of 12, she needed that quality
Right.
of being very adult in her mannerisms and her approach to life. And we actually found her through an agent. So she's played in minor roles in films before, maybe little bit parts where she's got a cameo for 5 minutes. But this was her first time being the lead.
That's fantastic. Wow. Did you luck out there? Ooh, she was fantastic.
We
I
did,
mean, she
yeah.
carried the film, and
Yeah.
it was challenging, both physically with those scenes. I think
Yeah,
about
it was a very rough shoot. I mean, we shot actually in summer, so we had to create the snowstorm. But
yeah,
regardless, the region where we shot, it gets freezing cold at night. And
yeah,
you can imagine we're out in the wilderness,
yeah.
small hit teams. Sometimes there aren't clear paths to trade to where we had to go. We had to make a way to get to certain places to shoot. She had to carry this little boy around in massive wind machines hitting them with dust in the face and fake snow hitting them in the face. So it was really, really tough. She happens to be very sporty, so she's quite an
Which is
athlete,
good.
and that
Yeah,
helped.
yeah, that's good.
So,
And what about
that's
the little
us.
boy? Because he also did a good job.
Yeah, Johannes was only 5 years old when we shot, and he was on set, I think, about 23 out of the 25 days. Uh, we had to do night shoots with him. None of that was done in studio. All of it was outdone in the wilderness. And obviously, when I say anything about him, I've got to thank his mother, who was on set
Of
all the
course.
time and coached him and really helped a lot. So
Yeah.
he was also incredible. But he was one of those kids in the casting process. It was a very difficult role to cast because you can't. When you're dealing with a 5-year-old child, they're not even of school-going age, so it's very hard to give them instructions. But
Right.
when I met him at the casting, he ran up to me, he hugged me before he even met me, and there was a certain spontaneity, and the audition was 2 pages of dialogue, and he just pulled it off. So incredibly
Oh,
gifted
wow.
child.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
funny. I was talking to a filmmaker earlier today, and he's made a film during the pandemic where he's holed up at his house with his wife and kids, and he has two daughters, and they made a movie together. And he was telling us about the story where his daughters were super excited until they had to do take after take after take after take, and really, that's what movie making is all about. Just like writing, you don't get it right on the first draft. There's a lot of rewriting and editing. Same thing with movie making. You just don't do one
Yeah.
take. And so they got to learn about filmmaking through that. So
Hmm.
tell me about this film's how it's doing in terms of has it played a lot of festivals, or are you just beginning the festival circuit, or what's been the trajectory of the film?
Yeah, I would say we really got hit by COVID.
Yeah,
A lot of because we released in South Africa at the very start of this year, and around about December 2018.
yeah,
Not 2018, sorry, that's when we shot.
yeah.
2019. And so we had a small festival in South Africa where we played, and then had our theatrical release. And that's the point where we really wanted to start our international festival run. And unfortunately, COVID came along, so a lot of festivals got cancelled.
Right,
And festivals really only started picking up on the virtual editions around about June, July this year.
right.
So we started playing in a couple more
Yeah.
recently, but it's been very challenging from that point
Yeah,
of
of
view.
course. Well, we canceled a film festival in April, and this is our
Mhm,
first one since we've done some online programming and found
mhm.
that there is definitely an appetite for it. But
Yeah.
putting together a virtual festival for those of us that have been doing this a long time, it's challenging because there's a lot of different
Mhm.
knowledge and technique that you need to do and know and implement. So we're thrilled to be able to include your film in our festival. What takes you to Singapore, or I guess, do you live in South Africa, or are you living now in Singapore, or what's?
So no, I'm usually based in South Africa, but
I
I got married towards the end of last year, and
Congratulations.
my wife works in Singapore.
I see.
So we were doing a little bit of long distance traveling back and forth, with me working a bit in Singapore, a bit in South Africa. And then obviously with the pandemic, I decided to relocate permanently because
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
it's just the nature of the beast.
Right. And are you able to work there, or what are you working on now?
um, well, yeah, look, back in South Africa, I also work as a commercials director. So that's kind of how I managed to keep the dream of making films alive. So I've broken into the commercials industry here. So I've been shooting some, and then I've got two other feature films that I've got some development finance on that I'm writing at the moment that will be shot back in South Africa, and also developing a series with some international co-producers.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So there's a
Really
lot
good.
happening. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, writing can happen, and getting pre-pro into gear can happen. So that's
Mhm.
really good. Glad to hear it. Thank you for sharing your time with us
Mhm.
and your film with us.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hearing the audience response to it. And good luck to you and everything that you're doing. Stay safe. And
Thank you
to
so much.
our Film Pittsburgh audience, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.